All right, the Clinton dynasty may be far from over. Up next, can you believe this? Chelsea's potential plan for Congress. They're not going anywhere. And while the Republican Party works to restructure the federal government, the Democratic Party is, well, it's falling apart. It's anarchy. Wait till you hear who's trying to take over and why it could backfire badly. And Ed Henry is here with the details.
Of your transition, they knew Bridgegate was still out there. Chris Christie maintains his innocence. They didn't want that distraction, but I'm told by sources inside the transition as well, they felt that Chris Christie was stocking the transition with too many loyalists to him. And this is all about Donald Trump now. It's not about Chris Christie or Sarah Palin or all the people bandying their names for cabinet posts.
He's also
about
a governor. He still has to answer to the people of New Jersey. He has a job.
Yeah.
Is that a bumpy start or is that a decisive start? Hey, I see this problem, I'm going to get at it right away.
That's what you're right. I was going to get to the competing narrative. So bumpy start. So what do? You say, look, we're going to get somebody else in charge. And the Pence narrative is the thing to watch right now, I think. Because, you know, when Mike Pence was picked, it was like, oh, he's so low wattage, Midwest, and Trump is this high wattage guy. That was a perfect compliment to the high wattage reality show star, number one. Number two, he's solid. Look at how much better than expected Donald Trump did with evangelical voters. Because he was pounding that throughout the Midwest, the South, and that was helpful. And then now the transition to governing, Donald Trump makes no bones about it. He's never governed before. Mike Pence has, not just as governor of Indiana, but as you all know, he was on Capitol Hill, not as a backbencher, but as a House Republican leader. He is the guy who's going to be up there with Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, and others. So I think it's very significant that Pence is
He knows how to do it. He's done it before. And you could argue that that was the first big decision that President-elect Trump had to make, was picking Mike Pence. And I think a lot of people would argue that he did a good job. It turned out to be smart.
And if he's the guy under the hood, Donald Trump is what? Is this like chairman and CEO?
Which is exactly where he wants to be.
That's what he does. That's how he runs the Trump organization.
Well, let's talk about the Democrats, because there's been a lot of talk for years about the Republican Party, and it's in shambles, and are they divided, and where's it going to go? But right now, it's really the Democrats where you're wondering what's going to happen to them. You know, you have Howard Dean now talking about taking over again.
The DNC, what a difference a couple of days make. It's like if Hillary Clinton had somehow pulled this out, the talk was this is going to be a meltdown on the Republican side, and that you see the guy with the scream there, Howard Dean.
Wow, well timed.
He wants to run for DNC chair.
Former governor of Vermont.
Keith Ellison, very liberal from Minnesota. Bernie Sanders has now gotten behind him.
Bernie Sanders, that's a big deal because the Bernie party feels so pushed out that.
And Bernie Sanders and his wife, I believe, was on CNN last night, Jane Sanders, and she said, basically suggested he could have won. If he had been the nominee, number one. And number two, left the door open to 2020. I think Bernie Sanders is 74 right now.
So they not have a bench then?
And maybe he'd be great and all that, but where's the bench?
So the same thing was being said of the Republicans, right? Remember after the last election? They don't have anybody. And then they put up 17 people, right?
To your point, I heard a top Democrat on TV last night saying, we need an autopsy. I think it was Jessica Tarlov, right here on Fox. She was saying, we need an autopsy of what went wrong for Democrats. Why is that significant? That's what the Republicans did after Romney. We got to do an autopsy. What are we going to do with Hispanic voters? And there was a lot of chatter just a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, saying there'll be autopsy 2.0 because the Republicans learned nothing from the last autopsy. And you know what? Victory changes everything.
Well, exit polls showed that actually most voters didn't want a more liberal nominee. They wanted a more conservative nominee on the Democratic side. But you talk about transition 3.0. There's a suggestion that maybe the Clintons are part of that solution as well.
And you know what?
The Clinton dynasty continues. Well, no, I got to get a response to this. Chelsea Clinton is potentially being groomed for a congressional run in New York 17 district. Is that the answer for the Democrats?
I've heard very senior people I've talked to in the Democratic Party who are so frustrated. They felt that they were forced into Hillary Clinton, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz rigged it, as we now see from WikiLeaks. And they said it was not an open process. They were forced into this inevitable nominee that lost in the end, number one. And number two, Chelsea Clinton, no knock on her personally, but she is all over the Clinton Foundation problems. To her credit, she blew the whistle on some conflict of interest problems. But then we had that report last weekend that maybe part of her wedding was paid for with charitable funds. And that has not been proven. But it was raised by Doug Bann, a former Clinton intimate.
Also,
so what kind of platform is that?
You think about what the family's been through.
Charity paid for my wedding.
Winning one.
You think that they would just want to take a step back. Let's just breathe. Let's go for a few hikes. Let's take our dogs for a few hikes for a little bit.
No knock on Chelsea Clinton again. I'm not going to pick on her. But I think from the top Democrats I've talked to, they want some space, they want a breath of fresh air, and they want to turn the page.
And they want a new name.
Absolutely.
You don't want the Clinton name, you don't want the Bush name.
Donald Trump wiped out two royal
legacy.
families.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. People forget that. I was talking about that over the past few days. People want to talk about Hillary Clinton and all of this, but he destroyed the Bush legacy as well, and destroyed Jeb Bush, destroyed Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And this is a new era.
Yeah, and it didn't destroy the entire legacy, obviously, right? I mean, because obviously you have 2 Bush presidents, very successful, but in terms of it continuing, you're absolutely right.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
And you wonder if anyone else would have been able to do that this election cycle. It was just, a time in history.
Everybody doubted him.
Yeah, yes, they did.
And the Democrats have 2 very distinct paths. I mean, you could double down, or you go with Keith Ellison, the first Muslim congressman, very far left, very divisive. He talked about impeaching previous presidents. I mean, they could go in that direction. It'd be a heck of a show.
No doubt about it. This is a real crossroads for the Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
Ed Henry, great to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
All right. Well, the president-elect vowing to help America's hardest hit cities.
We are going to fix our inner cities. Every single American will have the opportunity to realize his or her fullest potential.
So what can President-elect Donald Trump do to fix them? Bishop E.W. Jackson weighs in, and he's on deck.
Plus, he lost to Donald Trump in the primaries. Wait until you hear who is suggesting Ted Cruz for the Supreme Court. Stick around for that. Post-election Saturday morning with a quick look at more political headlines. Senator Lindsey Graham making a surprise suggestion for who should fill the vacant Supreme Court seat. Well, he suggests fellow Senator Ted Cruz. Graham once joked about, murdering Cruz on the Senate floor, but now saying, quote, there is no stronger constitutional conservative. Interesting. And it looks like Donald Trump was right about the New York Times.
I put down failing at New York Times. The newspaper's going to hell. Maybe we'll start thinking about taking their press credentials away from them.
Maybe they had to listen. The paper crawling back to subscribers, begging them not to cancel, while apologizing for failing to appreciate Donald Trump's appeal. Despite that, the paper does stand by its claim of fair coverage of this election. Abby, over to you.
Thank you, Pete. All right, America's hardest hit cities coming out for President-elect Donald Trump as he doubles down on his vow to improve their lives. Listen.
We are going to fix our inner cities. Every single American will have the opportunity to realize his or her fullest potential. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer.
So what exactly can Mr. Trump do for America's inner cities?
Here to weigh in, founder and president of the conservative nonprofit Stand, Bishop E.W. Jackson. Bishop, thanks for waking up so early for us.
Morning.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So as you know, this is an important one moving forward as we look at making America great again, as President-elect has talked about throughout this whole campaign, the inner cities and working with local churches and parents and organizations. What can he do just in the early days of his presidency?
Oh, a lot, Abby and Clayton. And who would have thought that a New York billionaire would be the person who would offer hope to the inner city? God works in mysterious ways. First of all, he can bring the private sector into these inner cities, and he's talked about doing that. I would encourage people to read the speech that he gave in Charlotte and read his New Deal for Black America. The bringing corporations in and getting government out of the way will allow the economic and entrepreneurial spirit in these communities, and it's there, but we just have to unleash it. It will allow that to emerge. I think that's the first thing. That'll create jobs and create opportunity for people who now feel hopeless.
Now, Bishop, looking at some of these exit polls, pretty remarkable compared to 2012, what Trump was able to do over Mitt Romney in the Hispanic vote, 29% to 27% for Romney. Look at in the African-American vote, Donald Trump 8% to Romney 6%. And he said, of course, out on the campaign trail, take a chance. What have you got to lose, talking to the African-American vote? And then, of course, over the past 8 years, we've seen black youth unemployment through the roof under President Obama. So bringing these businesses into inner cities, that's one piece of this. What about education?
Oh, of course, Donald Trump talks about school choice. And look, those of us who really care about the education of people in the community, rather than just pounding the issue of race and racism and everything is a matter of race, we've been talking about parental choice in education for years. Republicans have talked about it a little bit. It looks like Donald Trump is very, very serious about it. It's going to take competition. It's going to take opportunity for parents to choose schools for their children that they think will best educate them in order to bring educational excellence into the inner cities. And that is essential to seeing these communities turned around. Look, here's my concern. Are we going to be 50 years from now having this same discussion about poverty, about crime, about murders in the inner cities of our community, of our country? Donald Trump, I believe, offers some hope that no, we won't be talking about that 50 years from now, because he's a problem solver rather than a person who just wants to exploit people for his own political gain.
Well, certainly a time to give him a real opportunity here for some change. All right, Bishop Jackson, thanks for being here this